Good evening, Alex, and welcome to the CASAA update for the week of 5/30/2016. Sorry we missed last week, but I work for a slave driver that was intent on trying to kill me last week, so I didn't get to do a show.
Brutal.
What's been going on? What's new and exciting?
Oh man. Um, First of all, is the level back to normal? Are we at a decent spot
It's
now?
it's good. Uh,
Okay,
okay.
cool. Yeah, last week I was in Las Vegas at VPX.
Okay.
I got to talk a little bit about it on Kevin's show on Sunday,
Ah.
uh, last Sunday. I've been home for a solid week, and like I've left the apartment once to go grocery shopping.
So it's like a
So
vacation, kind of?
that's no, I've been working with the exception of yesterday and Saturday. I even worked a little bit Saturday.
Okay.
I have been working from my
Oh,
desk
well,
vigilantly. um,
of
uh,
course.
but yeah, that's kind of the impact that Las Vegas has on me.
Okay.
So 3 days at a convention in Las Vegas will make me want to just draw the blinds and stay inside for a week. Uh, so
Not
that's what,
necessarily. Not necessarily a bad thing.
no, it's been good. And I'm hitting the road again tomorrow. I am flying to Oklahoma City, and then we'll be catching a ride to Norman, Oklahoma to meet with Representative Tom Cole,
Oh, I
um,
remember you
uh,
talked about that before. Yeah,
at
that's cool.
the author, sponsor of HR 2058 and co I guess he's a co-sponsor or co-author of
Cole
the
Bishop.
Cole Bishop Amendment.
Uh-huh.
So that will be a meeting. Sean Gore is sort of facilitating that, I believe.
Right.
Myself, I believe Cap O'Rourke from Safada is going, and I think Greg might still be touring Mississippi, but he was invited to come as well.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, we're gonna have a nice sit down with Representative Cole and chat about some things. I don't know anything else other than that, but I'm sure I will have something to report
That's awesome.
soon.
That's awesome.
Um, that being a very interesting topic of discussion on the interwebs, I sincerely hope that we have cleared this up by now.
Hmm.
Um, but just to reiterate, in case people have not gotten the memo, um, uh, first of all, we are kind of on our own schedule. We had updated our call to action
Hmm.
for HR 2058 to include a message that is supportive of the Cole Bishop Amendment. So that and that's sort of just it's sort of on top of what we had already had going for HR 2058. So if you have not participated in that, that you're still able to participate in that. And we will be releasing a call to action specific to Cole Bishop. Probably, I assume we're looking at the first half of June,
Okay.
and hopefully the timing works out and it is coordinated with sort of on the ground, face to face lobbying efforts in
Hmm.
DC. Those are really the most effective. You have people going in and talking about an issue, and then that lawmaker is also receiving lots of emails from constituents about that issue. It has a lot more impact that way. And so we are consciously trying to coordinate something like that.
Cool.
So yes, and even since the last time I talked about HR 2050, I believe we picked up two more co-sponsors last week.
Yeah.
That brings the total to 5 or 6 for May.
Yep.
Yeah, and this was kind of my hope and
Hmm.
my feeling was that once the deeming regulations came out and people started to see just how horrible they were, that people would be, beating on the doors of their lawmakers saying, "Hey, you got to change this, man,"
Sure.
and we would start seeing some more support. Um,
Yeah.
so that is that. Uh, the other thing, it's a little too late to bring it up, but it's still important.
Okay.
Today, despite, by the way, I hope everyone is having a somber and reflective Memorial Day. Um, and I can't. It's one of the, I can't wish people a happy Memorial Day. That doesn't seem appropriate. So
Right.
um, I hope that we've all taken some time to look back and express your individual appreciation for those who've given their lives in service to our country. And what better way to honor their sacrifice than to participate in the legislative process in our country that is a cornerstone of our democracy. If you are in the state of Illinois, apparently you didn't have a choice but to participate in your legislative process today. They were in session, and um, the Tobacco 21 bill, SB 3011, was in. I, I kind of unexpectedly shifted to a different committee.
Mm-hmm.
It was in like the Consumer Protection Committee or something.
Right.
It got moved to a Public Health Committee and was heard today. That was around 4 o'clock Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't have any information about the outcome of that. But since they shifted it to a new committee, our previous alert where we were asking people to send in witness slips to express opposition to the bill.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be done again, and I saw this about, I don't know, less than an hour before the hearing was supposed to start. So it sounds like we got a few people that were able to participate in time. I just sent out an email blast about it, but yeah, I don't quite. It's I haven't dug into the history of like when this announcement was made, but
Mm-hmm.
that's particularly shifty, um, and especially on what most people who don't work in customer service or
Right.
sales regard as a holiday. Um, I have typically always had some sort of customer service related job, either in food service or the rental industry. So I
Right.
have never really had, I rarely get these kind of Monday holidays off,
Right.
um, unless July 4th or Christmas falls on it. So
Right.
um, anyway, so yeah, Illinois, waiting to see the outcome of that committee hearing.
Yeah.
New York State, and this goes to a larger subject that we'll be kind of rehashing as we go forward. Um, so now that the FDA deeming regulations are out, we can reasonably expect to see states uh, feeling somewhat emboldened to uh, reintroduce or introduce legislation that uh, updates their code
Mm-hmm.
to include vapor products in their definition of tobacco.
Right.
Also, do other silly things like prohibit the sales of flavors. Tobacco 21 is just Tobacco 21 no matter what. That's going to be an issue for many years to come. Um, so yeah, any of the stuff that we have been talking about, taxes, indoor use bans, flavor bans, restrictions on retailers and so on,
Yeah.
all of that is still on the table.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things are issues that the deeming regulations do not address.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're going to gut the entire industry, you don't really need to address these issues specifically.
Right.
Um, so, uh, so yeah, there was a press conference in Albany last week,
Right.
and the usual suspects, Linda
Rosenthal. Yeah.
Rosenthal,
Mm-hmm.
and Kemp Hannon, and the ACS, ALA, AHA, and I think someone from the Roswell Park Cancer Center, which is odd because
That is
I,
very weird
I had
because, yeah.
I it was they had been actually speaking favorably of,
Yes.
of vapor products. And I watched that BBC Horizon documentary this afternoon,
Right.
and they interview a researcher scientist from Roswell Park
Hmm.
who is monitoring, studying the secondhand exposure
Hmm.
effects of vapor products, and his own studies seem to suggest that there really was no risk.
Right.
So yeah, odd to see their name on that list of people at the press conference.
Yeah.
I got a quote in to kind of a local public radio's piece,
Okay.
basically repeating some of the recommendations from Public Health England and the Royal College of Physicians.
Okay.
But when I was in Albany with the folks from SFATA,
Right.
we had asked several lawmakers, you know, here's a couple of bills that we're concerned about, and what do you think about this? And all of them sort of said, yeah, something like this might get through, something like an indoor use ban might get through the House, but the Senate isn't going to do anything with it. It's just
Right.
not going to move. So I have actually kind of intentionally held off on putting out a call to action for this issue, because number one, uh, I don't really want these lawmakers thinking about it. I would prefer this kind of lame press conference just sort of fade into memory, and um, I would, yeah, rather just not bring it up if we don't have to.
Hmm.
And I haven't heard anything back from New York's SFATA people in regards to, oh yeah, suddenly this is an issue and we need to get on it. So if anybody's curious as to why we haven't put anything out about it, that's why the
Okay.
information that I have so far is that this might move in one house, and we might activate on that, but it's not doesn't have a whole lot of doesn't have a lot of juice to get through the Senate.
Yeah.
Speaking of New York, and I haven't dug into this a whole lot, but to sort of dig even deeper into this whole let's pay attention to our states thing,
Hmm.
um, I've gotten a couple of emails and a couple of phone calls in the past 3 or 4 days from folks on Long Island.
Okay.
Um, apparently, ridiculous vapor regulations are spreading like a small brush fire in Long Island.
Uh,
So I have Islip Township and is it Brookhaven? My handwriting is atrocious. I think that's supposed to be Brookhaven Township. Um, both have had hearings and or ordinances passed in the past couple of weeks actually. And so I just wanted to put it out there. If you live on Long Island, please check in with your city council and see what's going on.
right.
I suspect this would be a lot like Massachusetts, where kind of, your neighboring municipality gets it in their head that this is a good idea, so why the hell not?
Right.
But I will be devoting some time looking into this and seeing if there's anything we can do about it.
Right.
Um, but again, someone pointed this out to me again while we were in Las Vegas, that, local your city council is where a lot of things get started.
Sure.
If
That's
enough
true.
municipalities get and it's somewhat easy to get things through a city council.
Hmm.
There's not a whole lot of media attention on things, even if it is a controversial topic. I guess the media kind of looks at it and says, oh well, that's just a small population of people, not a big deal,
Right.
or maybe you'll hear about it in the media, but it doesn't really get a whole lot of traction. I mean, unless they're actually like, unless your city government is actually murdering people, um, like it's probably not going to make it to the national news.
Right.
Um, but things like, what most of the country might regard as, and most of the country does sort of feel that prohibiting vaping indoors is a good idea. Um, I forget the recent polls, but I think it is actually kind of not in our favor. Um, and considering that we are not a majority, that also kind of helps things. Um, So yeah, things like restrictions on vapor products is not typically too controversial, and getting a movement like that going at the local level is pretty easy for them to do. So
Right.
everyone should be advised to pay attention to your local policymakers.
Right.
Um, on deck for tomorrow, I have Pennsylvania is looking at its 40% wholesale tax again. The state assembly is going back into session on June 6th. That's next Monday.
Right.
And the discussion about the budget will be on everyone's plate. And the 40% wholesale tax is absolutely on the table again. So I will be releasing a call to action tomorrow for that.
Okay.
People in Pennsylvania make phone calls, send emails,
Sure.
and we can defeat this again. I am hopeful,
Hmm.
not entirely certain, but hopeful.
How many times so far have they bought that up this year?
Well, as far as I understand it, um, I could be getting this wrong. They never really quite finished their budget from last year. So Pennsylvania's been operating in 2016 without a real budget.
Right.
They've got whatever they needed to pass to kind of get by.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but as far as I remember it was never really finalized. So we had this discussion last year, the vapor tax and what was supposed to be a new tax on smokeless was all that stuff was taken out. Um, and they still had some gaps to fill. Um, and then it was brought back up again in one last push to finalize the budget, taken out. And so I'm not really sure what the 2016 budget ended up looking like.
Okay.
Um, but it's like, you can't just sort of, you don't just hide your checkbook in a drawer and it magically balances itself. So it's kind of the same thing. Like anything that was unresolved from 2016 is going to be unresolved for 2017. So
Right.
here we are again. And I suspect that until, you know, lawmakers actually get it through their head that enacting a vapor tax is actually going to cost them money, um, that it's just they're going to keep looking at this as an option.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, what was the place that passed it where they thought they were going to get $1.2 million and they got something ridiculous like
um,
$15,000 taxes?
yeah, that was a county in Maryland, and I
Yeah.
don't know why it's escaping me right now. It's,
Yeah.
it's like outside of it's like north and west of Baltimore.
Yeah.
I apologize, but yeah, they have taken in the last one we looked at. I think Greg had looked at the numbers, and it was for the first quarter they had taken in like $175,000, which just definitely does not put them on track to reaching
No.
their
No.
estimate.
I mean, it's really sad because I'm assuming they estimate those numbers like they estimate drug deal money, and this can't it isn't even taxed that way. I don't even know how you could. And I think there's confusion about how to make that money back, and it's almost a shame that we can't every time someone wants to enact it, we can't show them what other municipalities have made, that it's actually cost them money to try and enforce this. Because I don't know. I just
And
think it'd
there
be interesting.
and there's so many variations. I mean, you have, for example, the wholesale tax on nicotine in Minnesota.
Hmm.
That's very specific. And then you have the 5 cent per milliliter tax in North Carolina, which has not been. I think did that start last summer, or was that going? I think that went into effect last summer.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, I guess you've got a full year of revenue from that. Um, and then you have the more uh, steeper proposals that are out there. Well, you have, I think, what is Kansas? Is it like a 20% wholesale tax,
Yeah.
which has been kind of deferred until the beginning of next year.
Hmm.
Juneau, Alaska passed a 40% wholesale tax.
Ooh.
And then you have all these other, cities. Chicago is obviously the worst offender here with 75 cents per milliliter.
Yeah.
And so again, it's relatively new,
Hmm.
but it sort of initially has had such an impact that yeah, that would be, there will be official data there somewhere.
Right.
I don't know who the person is to put that together, but yeah, that's it's a very important bit of information to reference.
Yeah.
Not that they are going to care. I mean, I think, people seem to think that. I think I remember reading an article about this. It might have been something that you sent to me over a year ago.
Yeah.
Um, when lawmakers see dollar signs in a proposal, all that other feedback about, you know, where this policy has failed in other
Hmm.
communities, and all that sort of seems to be faded, and it doesn't really have an impact. All they see is that potential for revenue,
Right.
and there's also, I think, a feeling of like, well, that's not going to happen in my community. We're real good about that kind of thing, so we'll absolutely collect every cent.
Sure.
No one will be disloyal to this town and go shop elsewhere.
Yeah.
Support the local music scene, man. Come up front and dance.
Yeah. No, I think the data would be interesting on that. Maybe that's something I'll look at for fun, because I like money. I do. You know, it's something I find interesting, and I would love to see the results. So that's something I'm going to look at. Maybe I can put something together.
Yeah.
Which the data would be interesting if nothing else.
Yeah, it would make for a great talking point or a chart to put in with the other tax talking points that we have available in our Google Drive.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Fun, fun.
yeah,
Um, yeah. I actually earlier in this show actually played the Ben Swann video.
yeah. I sent you that link thinking it was something new, but it's been around for a few days now. Um,
Well, he's doing actually starting in June. He has like his own separate from what he does for broadcast television. He has his own like sort of YouTube network that he does videos for, and he's going to do a four-part series on the FDA. So I'm kind of hoping
hmm,
that if response was really good, he'll cover that and that would be really interesting too.
yeah, I appreciate. I didn't know that he was also affiliated with like a local
Yeah,
uh, was it CBS
yeah,
station.
yeah,
Um, so that was good to see. Yeah, a lot of people are, and it's not just the usual suspects, seem to be picking up on just how horrible the FDA regulations are.
yeah.
Um,
Well, they kind of are. They're they're so egregiously terrible that anybody can see it. It seems like it's not just us. You know what I mean? Usually it's just us preaching to the choir. But I see people sharing that who don't vape, don't have anything to do with vaping, don't like smoking or anything like that, but they're actually mad at the government for even proposing it. So that's kind of hopeful, I think.
yeah, it just it will be such a tremendous waste of resources and talent, actually,
Yeah.
to implement these regulations. It goes against everything that we as a country, I think, have, at least in the past, been known for. The scrappy backyard innovators,
Yeah.
that used, we used to have a lot more of them that solved a lot more problems, um, and now it's just that all of that has been kind of pushed aside in favor of big corporate profits.
Sure.
Or, I mean, I guess the last bastion of backyard innovators is Silicon Valley. Um, and even that is kind of out of reach for most people. So,
Yeah, exactly. So it's right now it's really interesting. It's interesting to see how many people are just finding out about the FDA stuff. I got to tell two vapors at work, and they looked like they were going to fall over. So we've got two new CASAA members.
yeah. So, just maybe a little storytelling commentary about VPX.
Hmm.
VPX, this was the second vape expo post deeming. I was in Pennsylvania at the
Hmm.
Pennsylvania Central Pennsylvania Vape Expo, which is a smaller event, um, noticeably smaller event, but still some lots of people were there,
Right.
and then went to VPX last weekend, which was huge. I mean, there was tons of manufacturers and retailers there,
Hmm.
and it's Las Vegas. I mean, just
Sure.
tons of people.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, it was kind of. I think I actually spoke to one person. I spent my time kind of floating around to people that I knew, and was able to kind of expand on. One of our members had actually posted this little kind of mini flyer,
Right.
um, PDF thing in our Facebook group,
Hmm.
and I sort of took that and expanded on it a little bit, made them smaller.
Hmm.
They can fit. I mean, you can sort of fold this in half and slip it into a box with an 18650 battery,
Right.
and so it fits pretty well in just about any box that a mod would come in,
Uh-huh.
or a box with e-liquid. So I worked on that to get little stacks handed out to several people that were at the event so that they could hand them out with all the orders going out. Either they could take it home or they could send it out with people that were coming by their booth. So anyway, as I was walking away, I stopped by. I guess it was one of these kids who kind of stepped out and was like, "Hey, how are you doing today? You want to try our e-liquid?" And they were next to a booth that was clearly infringing on some IP. And don't remember the name of their company,
Right.
either of their companies. But I kind of was like, no, not really. But here's a flyer for August8th.org.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, well, what's this?" And I was like, "Well, do you know what August 8th is?" It's like, "No." It's like, "Are you familiar with the FDA deeming regulations?" And he kind of got that, what kind of look on his face. And it's just like, oh man, like this is it's as bad as we thought. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta think that there are. I have a list of over 8,000 retail locations throughout the country.
Okay.
And that's not even all of them. I'm sure there's well over 10,000 retail locations.
Hmm.
And all of that is being stocked by, well over 1,000 manufacturers.
Hmm.
Um, and I would unfortunately estimate that well over half the industry does not understand what just happened. Um, and a lot of these people are new, so you kind
Yeah.
of have an excuse. I get it, but
Right.
it does seem to me a bit shocking that anybody would come into this space without doing some basic research,
Yeah.
seeing as it is nicotine. It is a
Hmm.
controversial product,
Sure.
and even people who are just picking up this product for the first time, it should be. Uh, you know, Somewhat aware of the potential controversy here. It's not potential anymore.
Yeah.
It is controversial. So
It's kind of
yeah,
surprising to me the manufacturers aren't telling the retail. Okay, well, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's bad for their business model.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I, I I don't quite know how to preface this in the right legal way. First of all, I'm not offering legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. Even if I was a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer. So just take it with a grain of salt, but be aware. I know that we have several people who are retailers who listen to this and follow us on the various outlets.
Right.
One of the things that was brought up at one of the kind of speaking portions of the VPX show was, um, I'll just kind of quote, you know, uh, my I buy product from a particular manufacturer, and they say that they are ready for the FDA deeming regulations. Now, I'm not going to say that that's impossible, but it is pretty much impossible. Um,
Yep.
I have spoken to at least one person who has been diligently going through the process of understanding, at the very least, what
Right.
they need to be doing to be FDA compliant.
Hmm.
And uh, they have been working on this issue since before the deeming regulations came out.
Yeah.
That's probably, as far as I know, the only person that might have a heads up or a head start in this process. There is nobody at this time who can confidently say they are prepared to be compliant with the FDA deeming regulations.
I
It's
don't.
just,
I don't think anybody can because the FDA can't even adequately, from page to page, tell you exactly what they want. Page 58 contradicts page 182. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And when you ask them, they don't even have like a straight answer. They just quote the regs. It's not really helping.
Yeah, that was actually something Shell Hamill pointed this out at the VPX thing. It was a Q and A with her and Greg Conley,
Hmm.
and she was recounting her experience in the past couple weeks with calling the FDA. And you call one person, they give you one answer. You call another, you call back, and you get a different answer, or they call you back and you get a different answer. So even FDA staff are having a hard time interpreting this.
Oh,
And
sure.
and yeah, like you said, if you watch the webinars, um, which somebody has affectionately named the guy, the general that is there, or whatever his, I don't know what his rank is, but he's got some decorations on his uniform. Um, he Captain Vaporoo, because I mean seriously, like the only thing that that set needs is like some cut out like set trees and maybe a clubhouse, and I keep waiting for like a stuffed mascot to come out.
Oh
Um,
God.
it is,
They're bad. They're really, the webinars are terrible.
yeah, it's difficult to watch, but I do appreciate the fact that they are taking the practical advice of you have to kind of produce things that are on like a fifth grade level, I think,
Yeah.
to reach a maximum number of people. And I will say, given some of the people that I have met in the industry, that's the level that they need to be addressed at. And it's very, very difficult. I don't mean that in an insulting
No, no,
way.
no,
I think
no.
it's a very
I,
practical observation.
yeah. No, and it's not insulting, but it's also, deeming regulations are not scintillating rating. They're not even scintillating discussion. They're boring.
Yeah.
When John Oliver talked about net neutrality, he said that the government had finally found the way to pass something evil, and it was by sticking it inside of something boring, which is kind of what they've done with both these webinars and with deeming. It's evil and it's boring, and it's so boring that almost wins out over you trying to understand it. But even they don't understand it. So how do you enforce what you cannot understand?
I think what they don't understand is the market.
Yeah, they
And
want to take the complicated and make it really simple. And it's
and
anything but
yeah,
simple.
and that's the real kind of that's the real purpose of these deeming regulations, is to reduce it down to a more manageable size.
I don't think it can be.
No, and they have neglected to acknowledge in any real way that taking away the diverse vapor industry, basically, if you confine us to just a few closed systems, whether they're tanks or not,
Hmm.
the rest of the products are going to be on a black market.
Yes, they are.
Um, and there is an awful lot of chest puffing in, oh, well, we'll enforce the rules, blah blah. But I just, this this industry was born in somebody's kitchen, in
Yep,
somebody's garage, in somebody's basement. There is absolutely nothing stopping it from going back to that.
exactly.
Um,
You know,
and
and people aren't stupid. They remember mail order with using money order. And I could see conceivably things going back that way. You know, if you push something hard enough, people will find a way around it. And they're pushing just silly stuff.
I was in treatment. I was in substance abuse. I was in addiction treatment,
Okay.
inpatient
Okay.
recovery,
Hmm.
with a guy who lived in New York City,
Hmm.
and he could have heroin delivered to his apartment.
Oh, there.
So if I can get heroin delivered to my apartment,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I can find some cotton candy, high nicotine e-liquid, and a specialty box mod.
You don't even you don't even need to go to the dark web to find this stuff. I mean, and here's the thing. If you search Etsy, you know, the handmade craft market, you
Hmm.
search it with the right terms, you could walk out of Etsy with anything. Anything. Right? It's not Craigslist, but you have to have the right search terms, and it's really not hard to find anything there. And the FDA is completely unprepared for what they're going to deal with.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and they'll be asking for more money in
Yep.
an appropriations bill in 2019 or 2018 in order to up their enforcement that will ultimately fail and just end up costing people a lot of money and
It's funny.
lives.
It's funny how people forget the grand experiment. You know what the grand experiment was? Prohibition. That was
Okay.
our nation's grand experiment. People forget the things that happened during Prohibition and how unstoppable it was. And the only way the government really could attempt to stop the black market in alcohol was getting ethyl alcohol manufacturers to poison their product.
Right.
So I'm not saying the government would do that. I'm just saying certain things are unstoppable.
Yeah.
This is one of those things.
I think I talked about this. Did I tell you about yeah, I talked about the New Jersey flavor ban.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a proper eye roll from a New Jersey senator when I mentioned flavored alcohol products.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
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 Well,
So here
it's
we are on the precipice of another massive national public health disaster. And I guess I should probably provide a little bit of more update in terms of what we're doing. I have gotten a few emails asking about where is the best place to send our money, and what kind of material benchmarks does the coalition have, or
right.
what are these organizations doing? It is. I need to kind of echo or restate some things that I said in Las Vegas, which is at this stage, we are likely not going to see a whole lot of achieving certain benchmarks. We are still in the, the regulations have been out for less than a month.
Right.
And there are strategies that are forming, have been forming. There are things that are in play, like HR 2058 and the Cole-Bishop Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So, things have been in motion since before the deeming regulations.
Yep.
Things are going to be started in motion in the coming months.
Mm-hmm.
We will likely see another surge of interest
Mm-hmm.
on August 8th.
Sure.
And all of those things contribute to more people being aware and more people taking action.
Mm-hmm.
CASAA has, we put out an announcement last week that we are getting behind the Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition lawsuit,
Mm-hmm.
which is that this is, I think I'm describing this correctly. This will be different. This is not the Indiana lawsuit that Right to Be
Okay.
Smoke-Free originally formed behind. This will
Mm-hmm.
be a different lawsuit tailored to the deeming regulations.
Sure.
So more details about that will be coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a bit of that's some financial support on our part
Right.
going towards that. And then one of the other important things to remember is that a legislative solution is this year. I think that we can all be somewhat hopeful about Cole Bishop,
Right.
going the distance.
Uh-huh.
But it's not wise to put all of our eggs in that basket. And this effort to change the predicate date,
Mm-hmm.
it does not actually have to happen this year. It would be great if it did, and
Sure.
there's no reason that we should abandon any effort to make that happen this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not.
Well,
But it a more meaningful legislative solution to this is likely to either start or happen in 2017, possibly going into 2018.
right.
There's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that needs to be done
Mm-hmm.
before FDA starts the really big enforcement, which is sending letters to people demanding that they take their products off the market,
Right.
which that happens in 2018.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hate to say this because sending money to organizations is obviously sending money, and
Right.
I feel like to be in order to be respectful, I should have a little bit more to show for it than just, hey, trust us, man. But at this point, it really is a matter of CASAA has a track record of working very hard to get things, to get information and resources and opportunities for engagement out to the community. And so, take that as evidence of how dedicated we are to getting this done. And
Right.
I'm not openly soliciting donations, but if you are considering a donation, please, by all means, send us your money. We're going to put it to work. We're going to put it to work.
We are. What I
And
was gonna say. Go ahead.
and I was going to say, and if it's something that we are not capable of, but we are in a position to support financially, then that's where we will direct money. Case in point, this lawsuit from Right to Be Smoke Free.
Sure.
So,
What I was gonna say is, it took the FDA how many years to write this? And what we had at first wasn't half as bad as this. And even knowing that we started formulating things back then, look how long it took them to come up with this document. If you think this kind of thing can be fought and won in a month, you don't understand the wheels of government. They turn slow. We're just trying to turn a little quicker than they are.
yeah, there's no silver bullet. there's no one person, no one organization, no one effort that's going to solve this. And you know, the worst case, well, a potential best case in my mind is it would be that we go all the way to August 8th, 2018, and FDA starts the enforcement, and it gets as bad as we think it'll get, and then we start seeing the regulations get rolled back. People are, you know, we have a lot of reason to believe that this is going to be horrible. That there should be no doubt in anybody's mind. But there are still hundreds of lawmakers that would actually like to see some tangible evidence first, and they're not going to act until, you know, and it's a human thing. You know, we're not going to spring into action until the building is actually on fire. And for a lot of people, for potentially millions of vapor consumers, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. But don't think that CASAA or SFATA or AVA or any of a number of other organizations, don't think that they're not working really hard on this. This is industry to some. This is what changed their lives to others. You don't just give up on that sort of thing. That I firmly believe.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. Unless you want to talk about Ron Johnson's letter, Senator Johnson's letter.
I think maybe we'll talk about it next week, because
Okay.
tomorrow is the deadline for FDA to respond to that.
Yeah.
So I will be curious what kind of response that they're going to come up with.
Well, you did hear when they said they were going to respond to him privately, didn't you? Am I the only one that saw that on their
Oh, I know.
stupid Twitter?
I totally missed that.
Yeah, they said on their Twitter that it was a governmental matter, and they were going to respond to him privately. I'm like, what? What? That's not going to go well for them. I think. I think people are going to demand transparency in that, and I don't blame them. They have every right to have transparency in that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
Response.
kind of what we have. I mean, I guess they're going to make us FOIA it, so um,
Well,
I'm sure Greg or Jeff Steyer already has that typed up.
oh yeah, fire up the FOIA machine, man. That's some
Yeah,
good stuff.
yeah,
So, yeah. And I guess that's it for this week, Alex.
yeah. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but we'll hopefully be able to catch it next week. And yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
having me on.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for everything you do for us, Alex. Have a good night, and we will see you next week.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.